WATD Fantasy Draft. It is week 11, and it is the Elite Eight Fantasy Draft. So, playoffs, round two. We are down to 14 area teams that are remaining. We fortunately have at least one team remaining in all eight divisions. So, the hope for the elusive, never-ending day at Gillette still remains intact for us here at WATD. I think we've maxed out at 5 or 6 games. Maybe not six. I think five with like 7 or 8 teams. But one day we'll hit the 8 for 8 trifecta, and then WEI can stick it. We are going to get into it. The order, Brendan picked first last week. I'll just a couple of highlights. We had a few big performances, a few not so big performances, but I think like a season high performance out of Mikey Galligan with 55 points, narrowly edging Jamar Chase in real fantasy football with a pretty incredible 5 touchdown day, almost 100 yards rushing and almost 300 yards passing. So a career day for Mikey Galligan as he rewrote the record books at North Quincy. He was the high scorer for the week. There were plenty of other good ones. Marquise Rodriguez-Smith had a big week. A number of other people who are escaping my mind at the moment had big weeks as well. But that rotates Brendan through, so it'll be Johnny, myself, and Brendan, the order this week. So as we get ready for the Elite Eight, let's dive right on in, and Johnny, lead us off.
Yeah, I'll start with wide receiver. Let's hope. Let's hope we buck the trend of every wide receiver we picking not advancing to the next round. So, um, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Brandon Erico, Hanover. I think they've got an interesting matchup with Auburn. I think it's probably one of the tougher round two matchups. I think, but I think they'll take care of business, and he'll obviously be a big part of that.
Yeah, I do think they have a fairly tough matchup, and I admittedly didn't even realize that. It's a great call. We were 0 for 6 on players advancing. Granted, a little bit. I don't want to say by design. We weren't, we picked guys that had good weeks, but thought that maybe some of our guys were in matchups where they needed to perform well, and many did not perform quite well enough. But I mean, Brandon's sensational. I think he's obviously one of the most talented athletes in the area, and I think, as you said, Johnny, kind of a big matchup for them this week. That's flying a little bit under the radar. So I think a great start there with Brandon Erico. That takes me to the board, and I'm going to go with. All right, I've picked against this team. I think that the way that they win the game is by controlling the clock. So I'm going to go to the number 2 seed in Division One. I'm going to go with BC High. I'm going to go with their lead running back, Jackson Richard. I think that they just flat out have to play keep away. They cannot let Springfield Central's offense onto the field over and over and over again. I think that they need to kind of shorten the game. Maybe I'm putting a little too much stock in Central, but I think it's a really tough matchup for BC High. So, I think they're going to look to ground and pound a little bit here. And Richard had a touchdown last week in round one. I think he gets another one here this week. All right, Brendan, close out round one.
I'm going to go to one of our matchups of the week. I would say Abington versus Norwell. I'm going to go with Ryan Solomini. I feel like it's going to be a game where Abington has to pass the ball. Norwell is going to keep relying on the run game. Will Bostrom for the most part, I think. And in order to win, Abington's probably going to have to rely heavily on him because he's their big play guy in the passing game for sure.
Solomini at wide receiver for you, Brennan. Yeah, I think that again. This is going to be our South Shore game of the week. 7 o'clock start time on Friday on 95.9 WATD. Looking forward to that. Abington, Norwell. It's a great matchup. Norwell got the better of the Green Wave in round one of this back in the regular season. And I think you're right. I think that Abington, what makes them dangerous as compared to last year's team, even when they had a lot of good options offensively, is I think that at the quarterback position, they've taken a step forward this year. Same guy, but he's taken a big step forward. And I'm not tipping picks here. Obviously, we know who it is. But I think that their passing game has really improved this year. They're still obviously a run-first team. That's Abington football. But I think adding in the big play threat through the air is what makes them really dangerous and what's going to make them a tough out for Norwell this week. All right, Johnny, kick off round two.
I was also eyeing that Abington matchup. I'm going to go more for a different guy. He's more of a running back. I'm going to go Mason Nash. I just think everyone's going to have to, collectively chip in to go on the road and beat Norwell. Obviously, they came out on the wrong end of a 3 touchdown differential the first time they played, but I do think it'll be a lot closer this time. And I think Ryan and Mason are both going to have big games, really top to bottom. They're going to have to all step up to beat Norwell.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. And again, it goes to kind of what I was saying, where you're not, they're dangerous because they have that passing element. They're still a run first team. Mason Nash missed early parts of the season, should be a little bit fresher here now in the playoffs, and hopefully is a big contributor for them this week if they're gonna if they're gonna pull what I think is probably fair to call an upset. Going on the road into Norwell, a team that pretty well handled business in your first matchup. I think Abington are going to be playing a little bit of the underdog here, and it's a position Mason Nash will certainly be fine being in. All right, I'm going to take our first quarterback off the board, and it's a guy who is new to the position. They were in studio on Sunday night, and he asked, "Hey man, are we doing a WATD Fantasy Draft this week?" And I said, "We are." And he said, "I think I know who your quarterback should be." So I'm going to go with Will McLaughlin from Cohasset because if you want the ball, I'm going to give you the ball. That's the kind of coach I am. That's what Quinn's fantasy squad is all about. So Will McLaughlin stepping in like wildfire, likely out for Cohasset again this week. And, I think that they looked good offensively, certainly in the first half of the game against West Bridgewater, and even, I think, in some ways in the second half of the game. And, you know, would have maybe been a little bit more aggressive if they had to be in the second half. But, Will's got a big arm. Whether or not he's going to be able to really get the passing game going is TBD. But he ran for almost 200 yards in their round one win over West Bridgewater. He is a super, super athlete. I was really impressed with his running ability. I just felt like we kind of compared him to Le'Veon Bell on the broadcast, where he does a really good job of waiting, sitting back, seeing where the hole's developing, and then hitting it really hard once it's open. He's a very patient runner. And yeah, Will, welcome to the squad, my man. First time writing him as a QB this year, so excited to have him aboard. All right, Brendan.
I'm going to go quarterback as well here, and I'm going to look to use Tyler Vincent this week from Hanover going up against a tough Auburn squad. Auburn's coming off a big win. I still would pick Hanover in this game, but I think it's going to be maybe a little bit more back and forth early on than people expect, and I expect Tyler Vincent to have his opportunities to throw a few touchdowns early.
They were flat out dominant in their round one game. The offense exploded early. I think that they're going to pass it a fair amount this week. I think that this is a spot, right? Like this is it now. Tyler Vincent, we've kind of told the story on air before, but a guy who, immediately after the season ended last year saw, all right, Ben Scalzi's moving on. Hey coach, like I'm your guy. I want this, and went out and won the job in the offseason and has been really good for Hanover for much of this season. They're going to need him. They're going to need him for a tough game against Auburn. It's as simple as that. All right, Johnny, round three.
I'm going to go with my second running back. I'm going to go with a guy who absolutely went off week one. I expect him to be a big part of their offense like he has all year. I'm going to go to Severian Leominster matchup. I'm going to go Vinny Busa at running back. Just been their workhorse all year. Tremendous talent. I mean, he's had a couple games where he's absolutely gone off, whether that's yards or touchdowns. It seems like he's always putting up crazy numbers. So I think they're certainly not a bad team. I don't think it's obviously as tough of a matchup as I believe the 2 seed BC High has, but I think it'll be a tricky one that they're not going to be able to walk through Leominster. They should be able to take care of business.
Yeah, 100% agree. He's put up some ridiculous numbers all season. particularly in round one of the playoffs, was just absurd. It was big play after big play. And that's going to be their identity. They got a young quarterback. I mean, Will Wood's a sophomore. I think he's supremely talented. I think he's a year away from really being the guy that the offense runs through. They've got a great line, so I think the focus for them is going to continue throughout the playoffs, really to be we're going to ground and pound the ball. That's how we're going to kind of get stuff done. So, yeah, Vinny, great pick. He was on my board, and I think that's an easy one. All right, that puts me to the board here. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with a wide receiver. I'm gonna dip my toe into a matchup with a little bit of uncertainty around it. Marshfield's got Winchester this round. Tormas was out in round one. He was dressed. He was on the sideline, but did not play. Didn't really matter. Nate Rawlinson, Nate, yeah, stepped right in. Sophomore quarterback was sensational for them. I'm going to take one of his targets. I'm going to go with Jake Brilliant from Marshfield. I've just liked Jake's game this year. I think he gets involved in the ground game a little bit as well. Kind of, you'll see him a lot in that jet sweep action, and I'm just really impressed with the player. And I think that they're in a little bit of a tougher matchup here in round two. Whether Tor is back or it's Rawlinson again, they're going to need to be, moving the ball downfield through the air as they always do. So, give me Jake, and I'm excited to get him on the board. All right, Brendan, close up round three.
I need a running back, and I'm going to go to Randolph's matchup with Narragansett. I'm going to go with Mekhi White this week. Feel like it's another chance for Randolph to kind of get off to a big start, and then they're going to rely on the ground and pound game as they have for a good chunk of the season. And we'll see how it goes from there. I still view them as one of the favorites to get to Gillette. We'll see if they take care of business this week.
How could they be anything but after a ridiculous 67 points in round one? I don't care who you're playing. That's a legit showing. They were 11 points higher scoring than any other team in the state last week. It felt, I mean, you couldn't go wrong really, Brendan, with whatever running back you wanted to pick because I think they had four different guys that had 2 touchdowns in that game. They spread the ball around on offense. They have a great stable of backs, and everybody seems to get theirs. Mekhi has that kind of track background. He's got super speed, and I think he's a great pick there. All right, Johnny, round four.
I'm gonna go down to D8 for this one. I'm gonna look at Nate Helms, wide receiver out of Carver. They have a good matchup this weekend against Bourne. Bourne's obviously 11 seed coming off that upset. I'm hoping Carver can take care of business and not. It's kind of a little bit of a trap game if you can have a trap game in the playoffs because I think you've got that matchup with West Boylston looming, which is always looms large, especially after last year. But I think they go out and take care of business.
I think it's a great point. I think this is an easy matchup for Carver to look past, right? And it's a great test for Chris Pabst, young in his coaching career here at Carver, because it'd be so easy to look at an 11 seed coming in and say, we can take care of business against this team. It'd be easy to be looking past and say, hey, we got an opportunity next week to go out and avenge our Super Bowl loss to West Boylston last year. So they got to be focused. They've done a really good job of moving the ball through the air this year, which I think was one of the big surprises for them. Jack Balzerini's been excellent at quarterback for the Crusaders. And I think taking his favorite target there is wise. So, all right, that brings me to the board. Getting running back, wide receiver, and defense. And I am, the wide receiver room, I think is kind of tough. I'm going to, see, this is the issue. I always kind of keep our South Shore game of the week off the table for myself because I'm on the call. I think that's one of the good ones. Like that could go either way. I think I've boxed myself out from being able to take somebody on either side of that matchup. So I am going to have to stay away from that. So give me Shane Mulcahy out of Cohasset. I think that, as far as coming in with a guy making his second ever start at quarterback in Will McLaughlin, like what Cohasset's going to have to do, I think, to move the ball through the air is find ways to get open and get open quickly. I think that, the big thing for Will is that the longer he's going to be forced to sit back in the pocket, like going through the progressions there, I think is challenging for somebody at playoff speed, second ever time. I think Mulcahy is probably the receiver with the best chance of getting separation close to the line of scrimmage quickly. And I think he's just after Will, he was the number one target this year. So I like that as far as getting him involved in the passing game. And then I would also say that we saw a little bit last Friday night of him getting involved in the ground game as well. So with hopes that he can do a little bit of both, I'm gonna go with Shane Mulcahy this week. That's my number 2 wide receiver. All right, Brendan.
All right. Well, there goes a pick that I had my eyes on for this round. So I have to readjust quickly, but I'm
All
going
right.
to go with Sebastian Brown out of Hanover and just go with the stack 'em play here. I think it's going to be tough, and Erico's already off the board. I think this is a game, though. Hanover's going to pass the ball, and I think he's going to have his chances early on before maybe the Hawks gain some separation and win by 2 touchdowns or 3 in the second half.
Yeah, I think why you'd never know in a given week which one of these Hanover wide receivers is going to go off. So I'm not surprised to see them both go off here ahead of a important and challenging matchup against Auburn. I think Sebastian's a great pick. Yeah, I mean, simply put, I think he's a really good threat on the outside. And you're going to see him pass the ball, and it's all the reasons that we've said. I think you can kind of echo some of what we've talked about with Brandon and Tyler coming off the board before him. I think he's going to be a key piece for them in this hopeful win for Hanover on Friday night. All right, Johnny, you need your quarterback and your defense. Round 5 underway.
I'm going to leave my quarterback for the last round since you guys have already taken them. So I'm going to go defense. I'm going to go Situate's defense. They're playing, the Wayland team that is coming off an upset already. Been extremely impressed with Situate all year. I have no reason to think they won't roll on this one.
Yeah, I mean, their offense is good. Their defense is better. I think they're vicious on defense, man. I think they're really, really special on that side of the ball this year. So I think that's a great pick. I mean, they kind of took care of business. They didn't quite pitch the shutout in week 1, but I think they're poised for another big game against Wayland. So I like the pick, Johnny. And I feel pretty confident in the round 2 matchup for Scituate as well. So I think that's a good pick. All right, that puts me on the board here for my either a running back or a defense. I'm gonna go with a running back, and I feel like we've been heavy in one matchup, so I'm gonna go elsewhere. I'm gonna go with Jack Reese out of Duxbury. I think this is a guy that we're gonna see come off the board later as well, but I'm short of putting a third or fourth player from any given team. I think getting some dragon on the board is fine by me. I like Reese's game a lot. Obviously, I think he's going to be big for them. They did not put up a lot of points round 1. I think we talked about it. It was kind of a lackluster game from them. It was never not in hand for the Dragons, but wasn't a big offensive game. I'm sure they're going to be motivated to go out and score some points. So give me Jack Reese going up against Canton. I think poised for a big game. All right, Brendan, close out round 5, needing running back defense.
I'm going to go running back here, and I'm going to go to the Zavarian Lemonster matchup and take Vinny Busa this week.
Nope.
It feels like we might have
Nope.
a chance to take. Oh wait,
Came off the board at the
who am I
top of
looking at?
round 3.
Oh wait a minute. Oh geez. All right. I do need a running back. So many options here.
If you have a confidence in a
Has somebody
defense,
already taken
go ahead. Sorry.
defense? You know what? I'll take a defense -1. I'm going to go with Duxbury going against Canton. We're going to go back-to-back Dragons here. I think that's a good matchup for the Dragons in this round, and they're just going to keep on marching.
Yeah, rolling in off a shutout in the last round. I think there's no reason that they can't do it again. They have a very uh, green behind the ears, if you will, defense this year, but it hasn't seemed to matter. That's kind of always my take on them is that the best Dragons teams can run the ball, and the best Dragons team, and the dynasty has been built off the defense. As good as the offense has been, it's been even more impressive how good they've been defensively for so long. And I think you're probably going to see more of that. I think Canton, I don't necessarily think Duxbury is. I certainly don't think they're going to fall here this week. I don't think that they're necessarily going to have their hands full, but Kansas having a much better year this year. They come out of a tough Hockomock division. I think there could be a little bit to this matchup, but I would still say it ends up on the lower scoring side than the higher scoring. So, yeah, I think Duxbury defense is solid, Brendan. All right, Johnny, round 4. Round 5. Round 6. Final round. We got there eventually, didn't we?
I feel like we've gone to this matchup a lot, so I hesitate a little bit. But he was my guy going into this, so I'm just going to ride with him. I'm going to go Jack Lucarelli from Norwell. He kind of stepped up late in that game where they got down round 1. So I think if you're going to win at home against a division rival, a conference rival, I think he's going to have to be the guy that kind of leads them to this victory. So that's why I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, I watch again, not really being able to watch obviously the game, but following along the end of the Norwell round 1 game against North Reading, which proved a challenging matchup. What he did in the later stages of that game to open things up and give them separation and give them the win. I think he was absolutely fantastic in round 1. I think he's going to be great again in round 2. And he's going to have to be. He's going to have to be for Norwell. So I think good pick there, Johnny. All right, that puts me to the board. I need a defense to close things out, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the Blue Devils. I'm gonna go with Randolph. Um, I think you're gonna see the beat roll on for the Blue Devils and for John Marshall. I think they were superb in round 1. I still don't think they're going to meet much of a challenge in round 2. I think their first test will come in the Final Four. I think the defense steps up this week and holds Narragansett very well in check. All right, Brendan, final pick of the draft.
I need a running back still, and I'm going to just pick a name that everyone already knows. He's already gone in the regular season, but it's another good matchup for them. And I feel like if Tormas is potentially out this week, they're going to rely on him a lot more with Davin Drew.
Yep, I think a solid pick. I think Davin had a great first round game. Going to need him to continue to be solid for them. Whether Tor is in there or not, in my mind, I think he's the linchpin behind Marshfield going on a deep run. I really believe that. I think he's gonna have to be really good for them. So I think that's a good pick, Brennan. I like Davin there, and that closes it out. So let's run them through and get us on our way here. Johnny out of the first slot. At quarterback, Jack Lucarelli out of Norwood. Your running backs, Mason Nash out of Abington and Vinny Busa out of Severian. And your wide receivers, Nate Helms out of Carver and Brandon Errico out of Hanover with the Situate defense. I picked out of the second slot my quarterback, Will McLaughlin out of Cohasset. My running backs, Jackson Richard out of BC High and Jack Reese out of Duxbury. My wide receivers are Jake Brilliant out of Marshfield and Shane Mulcahy out of Cohasset. My defense is Randolph and Brendan out of the third slot. Your quarterback, Tyler Vincent, out of Hanover. Your running backs, Mekhi White out of Randolph and Davin True out of Marshfield. And your wide receivers, Ryan Solmini out of Abington and Sebastian Brown out of Hanover with the Duxbury defense. All right, so yeah, once again, we've got South Shore Game of the Week coming up Friday night, 7 p.m. at 90 on 95.9 WATD. It's Norwell and Abington, South Shore on South Shore matchup with a chance to advance to the Final Four and hopefully take on Sandwich, but in all likelihood take on Hudson in the Division 6 tournament on the line. So we'll be on the call for that one. Looking forward to that. Go ahead and like and subscribe below to the WATD Sports YouTube channel. If you're here, make sure to do it. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter for updates on everything South Shore High School Athletics at SE on WATD, or just search WATD Sports. You'll find us there. All right, that will do it. We'll see you next time on the WATD Fantasy Draft.